Levi here, the Outdoor Cowboy, and welcome back to the Outdoor Cowboy YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be doing some bushcraft tool work. We're going to be restoring some old axes and giving them new life. We're going to be making a survival hatchet with a custom paracord handle. Then later, we're going to be doing some leather work to make a nice sheath for our survival hatchet so it can be a great tool for us to take on our survival outings. So, some great projects planned. Saddle up for the ride. Alright, we got some super fun projects planned for today. Some things that I've been looking forward to and wanting to do for a while, so I'm super excited. Our first kind of project we'll do, we've got an axe, a splitting maul, and then just a spare axe head. Just got these from someone for a couple dollars. They've just been sitting out for a long time, and I wanted to do a project like this. So these ones we're just going to be restoring. The handles are good on them. They just have some rust, so we're going to sand the handles down to smooth them out a little bit and sand some of the rust off just to try to make them look new. Like I said, we have this spare axe head, which we'll clean up as well. I don't necessarily have a plan for it yet, but I'm sure in the future we'll find something to do with this. Whether it's like making our own axe handle out of something cool or doing something else, not totally sure yet, but we'll just clean this up. So we've got a wire wheel we're gonna use, and we'll go pick up some sandpaper as well, just to get them going good. And then our last project is gonna be this hatchet. This hatchet is one I've used a lot, it's been great, but I don't love this handle. It's been dinged up a bunch and it's kind of fallen apart, been duct taped back together. So we're gonna get a nice wooden handle for this, and then I wanna wrap it in this kind of green camouflage paracord because I think it looks sweet just for our handle. And then we're gonna take our roll of leather and some of our leather working tools, and we're gonna make a sheath for this hatchet. I want this to be my new survival hatchet, so we'll make sure it's real sharp, that it looks really nice, and has a nice sheath so we can take it with us on all our surviving and camping adventures. And it's just a good size, and with the handle with extra paracord on it, we can use the paracord if we ever need it. And then I just want to make a nice sheath for it so we don't just have an open blade in our backpack or on the side of our backpack or something like that. So I'm super excited to make this kind of my dream survival hatchet, and just to make it look really nice, have it all cleaned up. And then you'll see this in future videos when we're out and about on our different adventures. So this is a knife and a sheath that I made a little while ago. I forged this knife out of a leaf spring of an old car, and then I wrapped the handle in a paracord, kind of similar colors. And there'll definitely be some videos in the future, some forging videos. I want to forge a knife similar to this. I also want to try to forge a hatchet and a couple different projects, so look forward to some forging videos in the future. But this is the sheath I made for it, out of a very similar leather. It's a little bit thicker, but I thought it looked really cool. I loved doing it, and I really like having it now. I pretty much have it with me in all my camping adventures. I made a little American flag pattern on this. We'll see if we do a pattern on our hatchet, but I just love these things. It's all finished up, so it's a nice color. Got a nice buckle there, my initials. So just looks really nice. And I've put this thing through its paces and it's lasted really well. So I think we'll make something very similar to this for our hatchet when we're all done with it. So first things first, before we can get started on these projects, let's run to the store real quick. We'll get a few more things that we need just to do our projects, and then we'll get started on them. Alright, first thing we're gonna grab is a new hatchet handle for that hatchet. So we're gonna grab one about the same size. That's about a 14-inch hatchet, so we're gonna grab about a 14-inch handle, just made out of hickory, just a light strong wood that'll work for us, and just a pretty basic straight one that we can wrap in our paracord, so it'll be perfect. Alright, we got this, and it comes with a nice wedge, so that'll fit in perfect and we'll be able to make it snug. Now, the other two things we're gonna get is just some epoxy to hold the paracord onto our handle, and then some sandpaper just to work on getting rust off and making our handles nice and smooth. Alright, found some epoxy that'll work, just some clear epoxy. Alright, then we're just gonna grab some 120 grit and some 220 grit. This will just give us kind of a rougher stuff and get us to start, and then we'll be able to finish it off with this. I also have a wire wheel that I'll hook into my drill that should be able to get most of like the surface rust and stuff off, just the kind of harder stuff, and then we'll hit it with the sandpaper and it should shine it up really nice. Thanks, you too. Alright, got the goods. Now let's head back and get started on our projects. Alright, we got our hatchet handle, our epoxy, and our sandpaper. So let's get started on cleaning these up. I think we'll start first with these two big ones, and then we'll do the axe head, and then we'll kind of leave the hatchet for last, just because we're going to be doing a bunch more on this. It's also the cleanest. I've used it a lot, so it doesn't have a lot of rust on it. So I think first I'm gonna get started with this wire wheel that I'm just gonna put into my drill. just to get some of the chunks off. These ones don't have a ton. I've kind of cleaned them off a little bit before this, just so there wasn't a bunch of rust on them. So I think this will be really good for the really rough stuff. And then we'll start with our lower grit and then move up to our upper grit and see if we can get it cleaned up real nice. So we'll just start with the heads, and then once those get cleaned up, we'll do the handles. I think if these were a lot worse, if there was a lot more rust, I'd probably definitely have a mask on just to not breathe this in. There's not a ton here. It might still be a good idea to wear one, but I think we should be fine just with how little is here. But always take proper safety precautions so you stay healthy, so that you can keep breathing and keep going in the outdoors. Here's a look at our before, just so we can see the difference when it's all cleaned up. And then the before on this guy over here. All right, well, we just did this side with the wire wheel. It already looks significantly better. I'm really surprised how well that worked. That did most of the heavy lifting, so that's good though. That should mean less sanding because I'm pretty much already happy with that. So that looks great. We'll keep going with this. Well, that one's all cleaned up with the wire wheel. You can see how dirty it was, all the stuff that's come off now, it's on my fingers. So, looks really good. I think the sandpaper will give us a nice finish, but for now, that's a great start. Now we'll get started on our splitting maul. All right, we got both these done with the wire wheel. They look a ton better already. Obviously, when you're using a hatchet or an axe for a splitting maul, you're not super worried about how they look. So I'm pretty happy with this so far. I'll still do a nice sand on it just to get it a little bit shinier. But then with our hatchet, we'll do it as clean as we can just to make it look really nice. But I'm really happy with how that worked. If you need any cleaned up, just a wire wheel like this and a drill does wonders. Already looks a lot better. All right, now we're just gonna clean this extra axe head up. Just give it a quick wire wheel and it should be good. I'm still trying to think of projects for this in the future, so if you have any ideas, let me know. I think it'd be cool to like paint it or something, or do something to kind of make it into an art piece, just because it's a nice shaped axe head. But maybe I should turn it into a survival axe or something a little heavier duty than my hatchet or something. So not totally sure yet, but I just wanted to clean it up just because I had it laying around. So we'll get this cleaned up too. There's kind of a before, some rust on it, and after. Looks really nice. Starting to get some shine in there, which we love. All right, got that one cleaned up all nice too. So we'll just hit them both with sandpaper, and definitely on this wooden handle, we're gonna sand it down as well to make it a little smoother. It's just kind of got some slivers and stuff poking through that aren't very fun. So we'll just give the whole thing a quick sand and then we should be good to go. Like I said, we'll start with our 120 grit. So after you did our wire wheel, it was kind of this dark finish. And now we can see after the sandpaper, gives us a pretty nice shine. I think that looks awesome. So this is pretty close on the finish. We'll still hit it with our 220 grit just to give it a little bit finer, but I think that looks great so far. All right, this guy's all sanded. As you can see, it's taken a ton of stuff off and it's still pretty dirty. So once we hit him with the 220 grit, we'll give them all a nice wipe down with a wet rag and clean up our hands and then they should be all good to go. All right, now we'll get started on our other two. All right, that one too is getting a nice shine on it, so looking good. It's kind of cool to see some of the imperfections. Obviously these things are far from perfect, so am I, so works good. But it's cool to see like all the dents and scratches that aren't getting sanded because they're a little bit lower that have just happened from the life of this splitting maul. So I think it looks really cool. It's a really cool looking texture and I don't really want it changed, so I like it a lot. That one looks super good. I'm loving the shine we're getting on that one, so looking awesome. Oh, I think that looks great for that one. I'm loving the shine we got. Again, these don't have to be perfect. Just wanted to clean them up a little bit, give some life back into them, so I think that looks great. Now we'll just hit this handle with a quick sand to kind of smooth it out and get some of the burrs and some of the slivers out. All right, well, there we go. Handle feels way better now, a lot smoother. You can actually run your hand up and down it without getting stabbed, so that's a plus. All right, now we'll hit it with the 220 grit to just get a little bit finer of a finish. Now that my hands are super dark with all this dust on it, probably should have worn a darker shirt, and I'm pretty certain there's probably marks on my face, so if there are, just ignore those. And I'll clean up a little later because we're just gonna keep getting dirty. All right, there we go, all done sanding. I think these look super good. I love the character that's still in them, but they're really shiny. I think this axe turned out super good. I love how shiny that is, and it's still fairly sharp, but I'll definitely sharpen them before I use them next time. But all in all, I think that looks super good. We can compare that with the before picture, but definitely way cleaner, way smoother. And it's not necessarily like it makes your axe look new again, which also doesn't really need to happen. Obviously axes take quite a bit of abuse, which is why they have so many scratches and dings in them. But I just thought this was a pretty realistic scenario. These have just been sitting out for a while, so I just gave them a nice cleanup. And now this axe will work for years more. It will look nice. We got all the rust off. So as long as it's taken care of in the future, it'll be a perfectly good axe. So if you have any tools like this laying around, then this is super simple. You can do with some sandpaper or a wire wheel, and it's just a great way to clean your tools up, keep them nice and keep them working for you. Because I've talked about a couple times in videos how important it is that you keep your tools nice. Your tools are going to be the things that help keep you alive when you're out surviving or out camping. Making sure your knife and your tools are sharp so that you can get the job done that you need to. If it's building a shelter or cutting through things, trying to cut food up, whatever it is, it's important to keep your tools nice and sharp. Obviously you don't want rust on them, especially if they're going to be touching your food and anything like that. But it's just important to keep your tools in working order. Make sure they're not decaying or anything. Because if you don't use your axe or hatchet for a while and you're not sure what its condition is, and you just go start using it and it breaks or something like that, you could be in a pretty tough situation. So that's what I really want to do with these three, was just clean them up, keep them nice, make sure they're able to be used in the future. And now we'll move on to our hatchet, which the hatchet I want to make nice. This is just a cool project. That'll include some cleaning up of the hatchet, putting that new handle in, some paracord, and then also some leather work, which I really enjoy. So this one's more of a necessary scenario, whereas that one's more of something that I want to do and just make a cool survival hatchet. So we're gonna clean these up. I'll wipe these down, clean my hands up, and then we'll get started on our hatchet. Give these a nice wipe down, and then don't set them back on the table we're on, because there's a thick layer of rust dust on there now. So we'll just set these aside. They look super good. I love the shine on them, love the way they cleaned up. I'm gonna go grab some canola oil or vegetable oil just to coat in these, just to kind of fill in the pores. It's important to do it once in a while, especially if we're sanding them down like this. So you can really use anything. I've used olive oil or avocado oil, canola oil, whatever works. Just use it, just rub it on there. It doesn't have to be super thick, just to protect the metal a little bit better and keep it good. All right, we got a little bowl, just of vegetable oil. Really don't need a lot. We'll just soak some into this rag and then wipe the axe heads down just to protect it and keep it good for longer. Just like that, we're good. We'll just kind of let this sit aside, let the oil soak in, and she'll be ready to use whenever we have something for it. All right, there we go. Finished product, all oiled up, sanded down. Turned out super good. Got a really nice shine on them, and these will last a really long time. We'll make sure to take care of these so they stay super good, but looks really good. I'm really happy how it turned out. So now that these are all done, we'll just set these three aside and get started on our hatchet. So like I said, with those two axes and the axe head, that's kind of a more realistic project I just wanted to show to help people out. If you have rusty tools or things that have been sitting out, just to remind you to clean them up and show you that it doesn't take a lot of time or effort. So I thought that'd be a little more helpful, but then I also wanted to do a cool project in this video. I didn't want it to just be cleaning those up. So here's our hatchet. We're gonna clean the metal up just like we did with the other one. And then we're gonna replace this handle with hickory. Hickory is a great wood for axe and hatchet handles. It's super light, but it's also pretty strong. So this will make a great survival handle just because it's light, so it won't weigh us down a lot. But it should be a perfect size tool just to help with anything that we need as we build shelters or cut down trees or get wood for fires. This should be good. Then once we got that cleaned up and the handle put on, we're gonna wrap it in this kind of green desert camouflage paracord that I have. I love this paracord. I bought it a really long time ago and I've been looking for a project for it, so I'm really glad we're gonna do it on this just to kind of thicken the handle. But then I also really like to have some spare paracord in different places. I've talked in a lot of my videos about how much I love paracord and how important it is. I did a survival video a couple weeks ago where we did a shelter almost completely out of paracord just to see if we could use it, just because I love paracord. So if you haven't seen that video, go watch that. But it's important to always have paracord with you. It can be used for so many things. And I like having little places that I can have some extra, not necessarily just a spool. Even my Apple Watch band is paracord. Obviously it's not very much, it's probably a foot or 2 feet, but I could unravel this and use it as paracord if it really was a survival situation. So that's the plan. And then we'll get working on our leather, which might take a little while, but I'm really excited to see the sheath that we can make for it and just the whole project wrapped together. All right, we're basically gonna do the same thing with the hatchet that we did with the other two. We're gonna use the wire wheel to get most of the stuff off, and then we'll sand it. And we're gonna leave it on this handle for now, even though we're gonna take this handle off. It's just a little easier to hold the handle, or if we need to clamp it down, we can do that. So we'll leave it in this, get this all cleaned up, sanded down, and oiled up, and then we'll work on swapping the handles over. So let's get started with that. All right, got our wire wheeled good, so we'll get started with our sandpaper now. All right, I didn't get a super great before picture for kind of comparison, but you can even see that this is after the wire wheel, how dark it is. And then after sanding, it's just a super nice silver color. So that looks super pretty. Love how that's looking so far. And that was only with our 120 grit. So it should go even shinier when we do our 220 grit. So I love how this is turning out so far. All right, now we're under our 220 to finish it off. All right, just give it a quick wipe down with water. We'll wait till the handle's on and the paracord's all together before we oil this one, just because we'll be handling it and stuff. But I think that looks super great. I love the shine we got on that. We're pretty sharp, but I'll make sure to sharpen it before I use it. But that looks super awesome. Love the finish. Still got a little bit of character, which I really like. So let's get this handle out and we'll get the next handle in. Get started on the paracord, and then we'll get going on the sheath. All right, we're gonna see what the best way is to get this handle out of here. I'm not totally sure. There's a little bit of play in it, but it's still pretty hard to move. So I'm gonna try to clamp the axe head in here, just with this cloth on it to protect it. And then I'm gonna try to hammer it just with this bolt on top. All right, slowly but surely we're getting some movement out. All right, well that was kind of starting to work. Obviously we made some progress, but it's still pretty stuck in there. I think I'm gonna grab my drill and just kind of drill some holes into there just to loosen it up a little bit so there's not as much pressure in there. And then I think we should be able to hammer it out. So we'll do that. We'll try to drill that and see if that can help us get this a little bit looser. Well, I think that probably worked pretty good. Got a lot cleared out, so we'll kind of go back to hitting with the bolt. There's probably a better way to do this. I'm just not sure what it is, but we'll get this out eventually. We've already made some progress, so we'll keep going. There we go, just like that, we got our axe handle out. All right, we got this guy cleaned up nice, and we just got the handle out, so it's kind of a pain, but we eventually got it. So now we're gonna put our new wooden handle in here. Most of these handles like this will come with a wedge just to secure it when you've got it in there, so that's super nice. Glad this one did. If you buy a handle like this and it doesn't come with one, you can still figure it out, but it might be a little bit harder, so it's nice to find one with either a wood one like this, or even that sometimes they have metal ones as well. Now this one's just a hair too wide, so we're just gonna sand this down a little bit, but not too much because obviously you want it to be really snug in there. All right, we got it sanded down just a little bit and it sort of fits in there, but it's a little bit too tight. So we're gonna keep sanding just because we want to be able to have that slit to put our wedge into so that it spreads the top. Because if you just pound it in and it's snug from the bottom, then there won't be really anything in the top that spreads to keep it apart. So you want this slit to be a little bit present as you're putting it in, and then you pound from the top. So we'll keep sanding a little bit more just so we can accomplish that. All right, let's see where we're at now. We're a little bit closer. We'll keep going. All right, I hand sanded for a long time. Didn't quite get there, so we still have some to go. So we're upgrading the electric sander. Should have done this from the get-go, just because it's way faster. So we're gonna do this for a little bit, and I think just a minute or two, and then we should be good. Because you want these to pretty freely go in, just because right now it's too tight, and so it closes the gap as I push the handle in. So then I'm unable to get this in, and it won't even go on all the way. So that's obviously not what you want. You want it to be slightly open so you can get this in. So it really shouldn't be super difficult to get your head on before you've put this in. So that's what we're going for. This thing's just a little bit too wide for the hole we have in our head. So kind of a pain, but that's all right. In the end, it'll look really cool, and that's all that matters. All right, after plenty and plenty of sanding, I think we are ready. There we go. See, we're able to get it most of the way. It's almost all the way in there. We're able to get it most of the way without hammering it all. So that's about what we want. And our slit's not completely closed in there, so we'll still be able to get this in. We usually want these to be about even with the top of the metal. So we're gonna get our head down just a little bit further, which A cool thing to do with an axe is hold it upside down, and to get the head to move up, grab a hammer, any kind of hammer, doesn't matter too much. A rubber mallet works great. I don't have one here, so we'll just use a hammer and it'll be all right. So you're just gonna hold it by the handle like this, and then take your hammer and just hit the bottom of your handle. So obviously our head weighs a lot more than our handle does, so the inertia of our head is gonna wanna stay still. And so when you hit it, the head's gonna stay still, and you're actually gonna hammer the handle into it. It kind of seems like totally backwards, like it seems like you'd hit it and the head would go off, but it's really cool. Just a little physics lesson for you. So if you ever put one of these on. So we can see right in there, probably got about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch still to go with our wood. So then we hit it like this. Just a couple of times, and you can see that we're actually past the metal now. So that'll be perfect though, because we're gonna saw it off anyways, but pretty cool. All right, now that we got that in, we're gonna put our little wedge in there. So you can see we've got our crack right there in the middle, which is where this is gonna fit in. So it's pretty simple, just put it in there and just lightly hammer it down. You don't wanna break it off prematurely, so you kinda gotta be gentle, but hammer it in there pretty good, and it should spread the handle out and really secure your axe head. So we can see how it's totally spreading our handle, so it's touching the metal, which is exactly what we want. So we'll give it a few more good whacks, and then I'm just gonna fill in just this kind of gap in the front with some epoxy, and then we'll just kind of let it sit for a little bit while we get our handle done. And then once we're done up here, we're gonna take a saw and we're gonna cut this off, because obviously you don't want this. The amount that our handle sticks out is good. It looks really nice like that. So you just want to cut the wedge off kind of at the same level. So we'll deal with that in a little bit when we get there, but for now it's looking great. All right, we can see we're kind of just starting to smash the wedge, so that's as far as we'll go in. And our axe head is really tight on there. There's no play at all, and I don't feel like it's ever going anywhere, which is exactly what you want. All right, we got our epoxy in there. I was able to kind of just funnel it down the bottom, and our wedge is all in there good, so that should be perfect. We'll let this sit. It says it sets up in 5 minutes, so we'll just give it 5 minutes to set up. Then we'll get started on wrapping our paracord handle, figuring out what we want that to look like. And then we got a done hatchet, and then we just got to work on the sheath. So making great progress. All right, we're looking good. Our epoxy's set up, so I'm just gonna sand this handle down a little bit. We just got it super dirty, so I'm gonna do that, and then we'll get started on wrapping it with our paracord. Okay, for my knife, when I wrapped this, I drilled a little hole in right there. And that's kind of where I started it. I did like a little knot and then started wrapping it. So I think I'm gonna do something similar. It worked really well and it's pretty easy, so I think that's how I'm gonna do it. But I think I'm gonna do it a little bit different. So with this hole, I drilled it all the way through because I had the idea of like maybe having some sort of strap, like a wrist strap that you put around your wrist when you're using it, in case you drop it or something like that. I don't think I'm gonna do that for this. So I think actually what I'm gonna do is just drill a hole, but not all the way through, just right here on the end. And then I'm just gonna stick the paracord in there and just kind of epoxy that, and then I'll start wrapping from there. And we'll just push down and do it as tight as we can, because we should only really need to kind of epoxy the ends. So that's what the plan will be. I'm just gonna drill a little hole right here in the back, and then we'll start wrapping it and just epoxy the paracord end into that little hole. Okay, there we go, just like that. That'll work great. So we'll just put a little bit of epoxy in there, and then we'll shove this guy in there, and that'll be the bottom, and then we'll just start wrapping like this and going all the way around. So that'll work great. I think that'll just be the easiest option, so we'll just go with that. All right, we'll just shove the end of our paracord in here just like this. And we're gonna have a little bit of overflow, but that is all right. All right, just like that, we're looking pretty good. We'll let that dry for just a couple minutes just so that it hardens enough, and then we can start wrapping our handle and get it all the way up to the top, and then we'll kind of figure out how we'll secure it up there at the top and see if there's anything else we want to do. All right, it's hardened enough that we can start wrapping, so we are going to start doing that. Just wrap it tight, and then I just push it up with my thumb just to make sure there's no gaps or anything. All right, about halfway done. I'm loving how it looks so far. It feels great. It's like the perfect thickness, so it's looking awesome. Just keep on going. So we're just about done. I love how it looks. It looks awesome. Feels great. So I think I'm just gonna kind of lay a bead of epoxy around the base here, and that'll be kind of our last wrap, will just be in the epoxy. So I'll kind of figure out where I need to cut it, and then I'll back it out a little bit, lay some epoxy, and then wrap it all the rest of the way. But I think it looks great. I love it so far. It's really sleek. I've been kind of trying to estimate about how much paracord we actually have in our handle. Just kind of as I've been pulling some out, I'll check, and then I roll it. I think each roll is about on average, probably 4 inches, and we've got just over 60 of these, so that's about 20 feet of paracord, which is pretty close to what I thought of just by pulling it out here. So even if it's only closer to 10 or 15, that's still a really good amount of paracord that could be used to build a shelter, could be used to tie a bear bag, could be used for a lot of different things if we needed it. Obviously my goal is to always have more paracord so I don't have to take apart my whole axe handle every time. But in an emergency situation, if this is all I had, then this would be a great option to use. So let's get the last of our handle finished up, and then we'll get it epoxied, and then we'll cut the top of our wedge off and just clean up the top area up here. And then we'll get started on our sheath, and then our dream survival hatchet will be done. I'm loving how it looks so far though, looks great. All right, we wrapped it, and this is kind of where I found the end will be, so we'll cut it there, wrap this part of our roll back up, and then we'll just undo about 2 levels, and then we'll just lay a little bit of epoxy in here all the way around, and then finish our wrap. All right, well, our epoxy came out real quick, but that's all right. It's looking good, all wrapped up there. I made it so it ends kind of under the blade so you can't really see it. And my hands are going to be now pretty thoroughly epoxied, which is just awesome. All right, we're pretty well set up. I love it. I think it looks awesome. I love the pattern that we got in the handle with that paracord. So we're just gonna take our saw, cut the top off, and then we'll be ready to start making our sheath. Okay, just like that, we got that sawed off. We'll just take our sander and clean that up a little bit on the top, but that right there is pretty much our finished hatchet, and I think it looks awesome. So, all right, just like that, got the top all cleaned up, so looks super nice now. Let's get started with some leather work. We'll kind of wipe off the bench a little bit, and we got to get a cutout of what our sheath is going to look like. I want it to slip on this way and then kind of have a strap that wraps around and buckles. So that's the plan. We'll see what we can do to make it work. Never made a sheath for an axe, but I think it's going to be pretty similar to how I made this one. I know the leather will stretch and kind of form into what we need. So we're going to be pretty close on this side, and then cut it a little bit big so that it can fold around it and then have the flap that comes over and buckles. So that's the plan. Let's clean the desk off a little bit. We'll get our leather up here and we'll get working on that. Just gonna wrap the top in a little bit of duct tape for now, just because I keep hitting it and the epoxy's not totally dry yet. So because I'm impatient, we're gonna tape the top a little bit. All right, got our bench all cleaned off. Got our roll of leather up here. I bought this big roll just because there's a lot of projects I want to do. So look forward to seeing a bunch more projects. I think I've got like 5 or 6 ounce leather here, which the ounces in leather just refers to how thick it is. So it's kind of like a medium thickness. That's kind of what I went with. I think when I did my knife, I used like 8 or 9 ounce, like it was really thick stuff. And I just don't think I need that. So we'll go with a little bit thinner leather, but yes, there will be many projects in the future. I really enjoy doing this stuff. So hopefully we'll be making sheaths for more things and have more bushcraft projects just like this. So let's get started on making our sheath. So our first thing is going to be just kind of getting a stencil, which we're going to use the back of the leather, and then a pen. We're just going to kind of draw out what we want. Then we use an X-Acto to cut the shape that we need out. So I'm going to put this piece of particle board under here, just so I'm not on my nice workbench top. We're basically just going to set this on here, and then we're just going to kind of trace. Obviously you don't trace like exactly right around it, because there has to be probably 1/4 to a 1/2 inch depending on what you're doing for stitching. And then ours is gonna kind of have to wrap around, so we're gonna need ours to be a little bit bigger anyways. So you gotta know the shape and the kind of style of holster or whatever you're making out of leather when you're doing these drawings. But you can usually put your tool down and then kind of base it off that. So that's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna trace this one side, which is gonna be the side that doesn't wrap around. And then we'll take this piece and set it somewhere else and use it as a stencil so that our stitching matches up exactly. And then we'll just cut our second side a little bit longer so it can have a strap to wrap around. All right, so this is kind of what we're looking like. We went a little bit wide here so that it can kind of wrap around and can sew together, and then gave enough room for here for our stitching. So this one we're gonna kind of cross right here, so it'll cover, I guess, like about that much of our axe head. And then the other side will have a flap that wraps around, and we'll put some buttons in right there so it clasps to it. So that's what we're looking at. We'll pull off here and continue this line up to there, and that'll be 1/2 of our sheath, and then we'll use this as a stencil for another piece up here and have our strap come off the back. Then we'll choose our X-Acto knife to cut out our pattern. Just like that, we got one side, so it's gonna go like that, and then it'll wrap and stitch just like that. So I think that looks great. Looks like good size. Now I'll cut the other side and make it a little bit long so it can wrap around and attach to there. One thing that I forgot to think about, so I just had to redo it, is which side is gonna be out. So obviously we want our axe to slide in on the inside so that that's the side that we see. But then our other side, we also want this side to be out and this side to be in. So we had to flip it, and I forgot to do that the first time. Just did it the second time. So there's double lines here, but I know which one I'm following. Just drawing out my strap, how it's gonna look when it flips over. Not exactly sure what it's gonna look like, so kind of making it a little bit big. We'll cut it a little bit long. And I'm trying to make these as close as I can to utilize the least amount of leather and waste the least amount as possible, just so I can use it for other projects and things. All right, I think that looks pretty good. Might be a little bit tight at first because the leather's gonna stretch, but that's what we want. I kind of wish I would have made my knife sheath a little bit tighter, just because now it's kind of loose. So we're gonna make this one pretty tight. Hopefully it's not too tight, but I think it'll all work out. Okay, just like that, we got our other side cut out. So these two are gonna go together like that. There's our strap that's gonna wrap around and buckle. And our hatchet is just gonna fit in there, just like so. And then we'll get these guys. These are our stitching chisels, which these are used, you just go around the outside and kind of put them there, hammer them down. So you make holes all the way around where you want your stitching to be, and then you can stitch it together. Just because this leather is really thick, it'd be way too hard to try to push a needle through it consistently. So you make your holes before time, and then you can run your needle through it without any resistance. So makes it a lot easier. So we'll get doing that. This definitely hurts your hand because you have to punch a lot and it's really loud, but that's all right. You'll get it sped up so you guys don't have to watch me and just hear me pounding. Then once we're done, we can all sew it all together, put some buttons in, and then we'll be done with our whole project. All right, just like that, we got holes punched all the way around this one. So now we'll just lay this one over it and just do it all again so that our holes line up as good as possible. And then it'll be good to start sewing it together. Laying it over like this and re-punching the holes like I'm doing isn't necessarily the only way to do it or even the best way to do it. It's just how I like to do it on small projects like this, just so I can ensure that I have the exact same number of holes and that my holes all line up. So this is the way that I like to do it, just kind of from trial and error. This is how I figured out that I can do less errors. So, all right, we got holes punched all the way through both of these. I'm just gonna make sure I can see some of these holes didn't go all the way through. So I'm just gonna re-punch them real quick and then we're ready to start sewing. All right, when we're stitching leather together, you use a pretty robust needle, and then you don't just use normal thread, you use a wax thread. So it's just a little bit stronger and holds a little bit better, so that's what we'll be using. And then with how you tie the knots on these, so you put it through the eye of the needle, and then with the end of the needle, you go through the thread itself. Go through the thread just like that, and then you'll just pull it down and pull it tight, and that'll make your knot that you need. So that's not coming undone. And then when you're starting your thread, what you do is you tie a little knot in this end and then put it through one of your holes, but keep it on the inside. So then that's where the knot goes. And then grab a lighter and burn the end of it. And then I usually take my razor blade, and while it's still hot, I'll just squish it down like that. So then it's flat, kind of melted to the leather, and it won't come out this side. And now we just start sewing it together. You can see we got 2 stitches already. We're gonna be alternating on the way there, and then we'll start on this side and we'll come back and fill it in so there's a stitch between every hole, just for extra strength. Okay, made it all the way around once, which this would totally work. I just like the look of having a stitch all the way around, so I'm gonna double back just for a little bit of strength. But we can take our duct tape off. Our epoxy's all dried, looking good. And we can test fit our sheath. just like that, fits right in there. It's pretty snug, but like I said, the leather will form and stretch, so that'll work. Then our strap will come around and buckle somewhere over here. I haven't figured it out totally yet, but that looks awesome. Matches the green super well, so we'll sew the other side and then we'll get the buttons figured out, and then our hatchet's all done. All right, just like that, we got double stitch all the way around. Now we'll just burn this in so it won't come unraveled. There we go, just like that. Axe fits right in there. The leather's gonna stretch a little, but we'll go like this and start figuring out where we want our buckles to be at. I'm thinking I'm gonna cut it kind of just at this same angle because it would look nice. Then put a button right there, button right there. All right, for each one of these clasps, there's 4 pieces that go into it, so we got 2 sets of those. Okay, just like that, we got our 4 holes made that line up just like that. So we'll start assembling our buttons so that it latches together when the axe is in there, holds it in there, keeps it safe, and make sure we don't just have a sharp free edge in our backpack or wherever we put it. Okay, just like that, got these both on. Now these are on, so those go clasps right there. Let's test fit it with our axe in there. Slide on in, pop both those on there. Just like that, super snug, looks nice. These things are fastened and they're pretty hard to pop out, so it's not like it'll ever pop out inside my bag or anything, so pretty sweet. All right, we're just about finished up with this. It looks really pretty. I love the way it turned out. This looks awesome. I love the lighter color, and I just love the handle. It looks so cool. It feels really good. A lot of times I feel like hatchet handles are like really narrow and really small, which I have pretty big hands, so they don't really feel good most of the time. But this one does feel really good. I really like the size of it. And again, like I talked about, having 10 or 15 or 20 extra feet of paracord, whatever's in here, could come in handy in a survival situation. And I always like to be prepared like that. So I love it. And then this thing turned out awesome. It's super small and sleek. And I really like when the hatchet's not in here. This thing can either be clasped and it's pretty much flat, or this way and it's pretty much flat. So that's really nice, doesn't take up a lot of space. The whole thing together is pretty light, which is also really nice. I don't want something super heavy for my survival hatchet, so love the way this turned out. The last 2 things that we're gonna do is we're gonna take the last of our vegetable oil and rub it on our hatchet head. Then we're gonna do a similar thing with our sheath. We got some of this Karuba cream, which is just a leather finish. It'll probably darken our leather a little bit, kind of similar to what my knife looks like. But I kind of like that, but I also want it to stay protected, which the Karuba cream will do a good job of protecting it. So we'll throw a layer of that on real quick. You can see the color difference of stuff that's been finished with it and stuff that hasn't. And the nice thing about the cream is we can put on as many layers as we want. 1 layer will be good for now, so we don't have to worry too much. But if we want it to be darker or more protected in the future, we can totally throw more on. So just like that, we got my dream survival hatchet. The custom wood handle wrapped in extra paracord. We got the hatchet head all cleaned up. And then this sweet custom sheath that we made out of leather. So I love this thing, and I will definitely be taking this on some survival campouts. So watch for this, and then also watch for more projects like this in the future. I love this project. I love how this thing turned out. I really like being able to spend time and have something that you can use that you're proud of. So if there's any projects you'd like to see, let me know down in the comments. Whether that's some more restorations like what we did earlier, or kind of custom stuff like this, just different projects. So just let me know what you'd like to see, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I did. I learned a lot, sharpened my skills and sharpened my tools, and now I have an awesome hatchet that I can take out and use as a tool to help me survive. I'm super stoked how this turned out, and I love how it matches my knife that I made a little while ago with a leather sheath as well. But I love both of these. Are kind of rough looking, a little shiny, and then the matching paracord handles. And I'm just excited to get out and use both of these on our next survival trip. They just look awesome together. So super excited about this. Super glad we made it. It turned out just incredible. So that'll be all for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.
This video, make sure to check out the Outdoor Cowboy YouTube channel. We've got new videos every week. Survival adventures, camping projects, tool restorations, and a whole bunch more. Hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.